Hello. This will be my last and hopefully most interesting, what do I call these things? October Halloween movie report of 2021 at least. Perhaps if I'm still doing the YouTube thing next year, maybe I'll do uh, more reports next year. So Thursday night, I know we watched The Bride of Frankenstein. It is one of my favorites of the Universal Monster collection, and it's it's the only one. There are, well, let's see. There's the daughter of Dracula. There's the she-wolf. There's the Invisible Woman. But other than Ariana Grande, there's no she creature. There's no she phantom. There doesn't seem to be a she mummy. So there are very few she monsters, and the only one who and it's because the movie is the second half of the novel Frankenstein, more than anything else probably. But she's the only one who is featured on on the cover of the big box set. And when I got the 8 VHS set back in 1999 or 2000, whenever that was, she was the only one who got her own VHS. She's played by Elsa Lanchester, and who also plays Mary Shelley in the very first scene of the movie. She is telling the rest of the Frankenstein story to, I assume, Shelley and I don't remember who the other guy is, another poet. But I think I might have mentioned that a more accurate portrayal of her and her feelings toward her husband can be seen in the movie Mary Shelley starring Elle Fanning. But the monster's mate, see, the Bride of Frankenstein, I was talking as though the Bride of Frankenstein is Elsa Lanchester's character. It's not. It's the woman who's going to marry Dr. Frankenstein. That is the Bride of Frankenstein. But Elsa Lanchester's character is, who is actually referred to as the monster's mate, is what everyone thinks of as the Bride of Frankenstein, with the tall hair and all the white, big white gown. I guess they're dressing her up as a bride, and she plays makes a cameo of sorts. She's a subject of discussion early-ish, toward the beginning of the middle of my novel Cupid Takes a Holiday. The link to buy the novel is in the description below. I had just mentioned that because the discussion is about how that, along with other things, but that specifically is a change from the novel Frankenstein. Frankenstein never brings the monster's mate to life in the novel, but he does, and as well as the other doctor the other scientist whose name escapes me at the moment. They bring her to life at the end of this movie, and she rejects the monster. And so I have my characters discuss why, and it's very academic. It's not particularly academic because I'm not particularly academic, but it is the kind of conversation I can remember having when I was doing academics. But it's interesting for that reason. It's it's a change. It's a significant change from the novel. She's not made up whole cloth like the Invisible Woman or Dracula's daughter, which is, I guess, based on Carmilla a little bit. But she's also not exactly what she is in the novel. So I think it's better than the original Frankenstein movie. More interesting. It covers the more interesting portion of the book. I think it's the only one. It's the only one of these movies where Frankenstein's monster speaks, and it's wonderful to hear him speak. It tells the part of the story of him forming a friendship with the old blind man in the cabin, and then later with the other mad scientist who's a made-up character. But him talking to Frankenstein and how Frankenstein responds to, it can talk now? I thought it was dead, but now it can talk. There's a lot of great moments, and the climactic scene is wonderful. I don't recall what else we watched on Thursday. It might not have been Halloween related, or maybe I slept through it, like so many others. But on Friday, it was Disney night. We watched that Star Wars Lego special that Disney Plus did, uh, Frightening Tales or Scary Tales or something, Poe Dameron, and the caretaker of Darth Vader's castle on Mustafar. There were some parts that I liked, and some mostly parts that I thought, well, this treats the story in a very weird way. There's an alternate history of Luke Skywalker, which was interesting. Um, Ultimately, I'm a episodes 1 through 9 person. I don't really need or care much about all the many extra things that Disney and Disney Plus are doing. I will watch them if I have Disney Plus at the time. Don't know if I will from month to month. The trailer for the Boba Fett show looked like I will kill some time with it this holiday season. But yeah, it was something to watch other than Halloween Town. And then we watched Halloween Town because last week when we watched Hocus Pocus, and the malevolent supernatural force I live with texted her friends that I had suggested that she and 2 of her friends could be superimposed on the main witches of Hocus Pocus, and she found it very amusing, and so did they. And they said, "So are you going to watch Halloween Town next?" And she said, "No, but next weekend." And so we did, and it was fun. That one I did lose a little bit to droopy eyes, but I got the gist of it, and glad I watched it. I've been curious about it for a while. I keep seeing the DVD places, and I'm thinking, it seems like something that I should, but I'm not going to. But yeah, so that was that. And I think it was just those 2 Disney things on Friday night. Saturday was more interesting. We finished a couple of things. This kind of, I'm not saying it's based on Sweeney Todd, but similar to Sweeney Todd, where it's called Eating Raoul. It wasn't very good, but it was interesting. This couple, they want to raise money. They find that they accidentally kill a couple people, and they have to dispose of the bodies. But first they say, well, these are rich people. They have money. We need money. And so they work out a thing where they're going to lure people, kill them, take their money, all that sort of thing. They make a bargain with another person who needs the bodies. He wants to help them lure, and then he wants to be the one to dispose of the bodies. And it's not, in this case, it's not Soylent Green. It's not Sweeney Todd baking them into pies. It's dog food, which is a little better, but still. So that's this Eating Raoul movie. We finished that. We'd started it about a month ago. And then we finished the newer movie version of Blithe Spirit. I believe we watched the older version of Blithe Spirit either months ago or last year. Not last Halloween, but it's an old Coward play. I saw a community theater production of it with an all-kid cast, a couple of friends. I missed the Angela Lansbury revival, but I do have the playbill, but it's not here with me. That a friend gave me the playbill, and it had Christine Ebersol in it, and I'd like to see it one day, a professional production, perhaps be in it. Don't know if that's going to happen. And this was, I think, kind of spruced up, more modern. Leslie Mann, Isla Fisher, Dan Stevens, and Judi Dench in the Angela Lansbury role of the medium. It was fun. It was like Raoul. It's like Eating Raoul. It's more a comedy than a horror or monster, but it's about ghosts and spirits and bringing people back from the dead. So it fit. But then, we had other things planned, but they had to be watched in here. Not everything can be watched on the computer, and those 2 things were watched on the computer. So we started the 1999 version of The Mummy while we were still cooking in the kitchen. We do a lot of that on the weekends. And that's an evergreen, always welcome movie in this apartment any time of year, but we figured last year we watched the Boris Karloff Mummy. Who knows if we'll ever watch the Tom Cruise version again, but this one we love, and so we started it. We knew that we could finish. We could, cut it off and then finish it later. And we watched a lot of it, and we really love it. It's hilarious. It's not really scary. It's like those other ones. It's not really scary. I think with the exception of a certain genre of monster, we've moved away from the humanoid monsters. We don't find there's a little bit of an ick factor with the realistically depicted corpse coming back to life early on in The Mummy, but then he quickly becomes the rather handsome Arnold Vosloo, and I think that's the actor's name. I'll look that up while I'm talking. So it's a monster movie, but it's not a horror movie. Yes, Arnold Vosloo. So it's a monster movie, but it's not a horror movie. It's more of an adventure movie. It's more akin to not Sherlock Holmes, Indiana Jones. I was just reading Sherlock Holmes because that's this month and next month's novel. It is very Indiana Jones, and I like it better than any of the Indiana Joneses. Although we'll see how this fifth one shapes up. And I even like the sequels. It's one of those things where I wouldn't buy the sequels on their own. I would buy The Mummy on its own on a DVD, but I'm kind of hoping that I find a 3 DVD set, because The Mummy Returns is okay, and I love the idea in Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, the idea that the terracotta warriors, which is a real thing, that they are mummies. I love that idea. I think that's creative. That's out on a limb. That's using your imagination. So highly recommend The Mummy as far as, but again, like we take pity on the werewolf. The Invisible Man is still scary. He's scary in a new way now. The Elizabeth Moss, not the Elizabeth Banks. Elizabeth Banks might redo the Invisible Woman, and that would be great, but the Elizabeth Moss Invisible Man movie is very different than the H.G. Wells novel and the movie based on that, but it's of its time. We wouldn't really consider that kind of Invisible Man to be a monster today the way that the Invisible Man is a monster in the Elizabeth Moss version. So we've moved toward kind of monsters are either real people doing monstrous things, or kind of like in Come Play, that Larry guy, like the Babadook, like just kind of, or Slender Man, kind of just elongated, humanoid, alien-faced, bug-sounding things that all look and sound the same, and not sure that monster movies are having a renaissance at this time. What did we watch when we came back in here? What did we have to wait for? I think it was perhaps on Amazon Prime. Oh, we continued, and that's what else we watched on Thursday as well. We watched on Thursday, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, and then on Saturday, came back in here, we watched I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. And they were both there. I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of I Know What You Did Last Summer. I found it interesting, but also ultimately it's not Scream, it's not Halloween, it's not A Nightmare on Elm Street. And as can sometimes happen, the sequels got progressively not better. I enjoyed seeing Rachel from Animorphs as the lead in a feature-length movie, although this was apparently a straight-to-VHS release, so unfortunately she did not get to highlight in a movie theater. But still, I was glad to get to her, to see her. It was by that time, and there was nothing much interesting about I Still Know What You Did Last Summer other than the idea of staying at a tropical resort during a hurricane, which appealed to me. But in I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, that was clearly when they were trying to make I think the fisherman is what they called him. They were trying to make him into Freddy or Jason or Michael Myers. They were trying to do that, make him a legend, make him a monster, a boogeyman, not a person out for revenge for the murder of his son. So, yes, that's not. He's out for revenge for the murder of himself, but he wasn't killed. Anyway, you can see why it wouldn't necessarily work. So it was interesting to see them trying to do that. And there's a episodic version of I Know What You Did Last Summer on Amazon Prime as well. I have no intention of looking at that, just like I have no intention of looking at the television show version of Scream. But maybe one day. It depends on how long it lasts, how many episodes, and how much else there is to watch. We finished up The Mummy after I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, and that might have been the end of the night for us. Or no, we also, or did we watch the, no, we watched The Creature from the Black Lagoon after finishing up The Mummy. That is another, that, Invisible Man, and The Bride of Frankenstein are my favorite 3 of that 30 movie set. There are other movies that are great. I really like the performances in Phantom of the Opera and Dracula more than I like the movies. And there's some interesting sequels in there. And then, of course, there's the Abbott and Costello stuff, which was my first introduction to Abbott and Costello. But yes, Creature from the Black Lagoon, I really love it. It was the biggest surprise for me when I watched those first 8 movies on VHS because I knew absolutely nothing about it, and I loved it then. It's Jurassic Park meets Jaws, and I've talked about it on its own video as part of Monsters at Midnight. So yesterday, we watched 3 episodes of Sabrina the Teenage Witch while we were cooking, and then we watched A Quiet Place Part 2 when we came into the living room for actual viewing. And I remembered liking A Quiet Place. The monsters are kind of the elongated humanoid bug alien things that aren't very interesting, but how they combat them is interesting. And in this case, the deaf daughter became the hero, whereas I think John Krasinski was the hero in the last one. And she sets out on a quest. She figures out, because her father figured out, and now she figures out how to use her cochlear implant to defeat the monsters, make them vulnerable and defeat them. And teams up with Scarecrow from Batman Begins, and they make a journey, and then the mother, brother, and baby are left to fend for themselves. She sets off on her own, but eventually Cillian Murphy, he joins her, and they're setting out to this island where they know there's a radio broadcast that they can maybe use. So it was very good, but again, the monsters aren't interesting. They look and sound like every other monster. So yeah, so great hero, not so great monster. That, I think, is where the better monster movies are these days. But then there's monster movies like Get Out, where the monsters are people doing monstrous things. So yeah. I wonder what Jordan Peele's next movie will be like. It's something like About Clouds or something. So then we watched the 2 episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark, which I will talk about in the next video. And we went for our walk. I was dressed as the Phantom of the Opera. She was dressed as an elf. And we walked around Central Park. We walked up Broadway and Columbus Circle. 69th Street often has a big Halloween bash trick-or-treating thing going on. We don't trick-or-treat, but we like to look at the decorations. And we came back, and it was time to test the DVD of The Nightmare Before Christmas, which I bought her for her birthday, and she insisted we wait to watch it. And I always like to make sure they work right away when we can, but we waited, and I saw another one in between, and I thought, I wish I knew if that first one I got worked, because then I'd know whether or not to get this one, but we don't have to because it worked really well. And that movie, I usually prefer to watch it around Thanksgiving, but it is a good, whenever watched, transitional sort of movie from Halloween to Thanksgiving and Christmas. And that is the end of our viewing, our October Halloween viewing. Mostly movies that we didn't watch last year, which was nice, but also highlights from last year. But also some that we've been watching year after year that we didn't watch because we watched all new stuff. That's what I like to do. Because you can watch any of these movies any time in the year. So when it's actually the celebratory Halloween time, I like to do as much new as possible. I'm hoping next year we can get in all of the Halloween movies if they're all available to stream somehow, because that's been really fun. Last year we did it kind of with Leprechaun. We watched 1 through 4. And this year we did it with A Nightmare on Elm Street and I Know What You Did Last Summer. So, and I think we've done it with Scream, at least with the first 3. So, yeah, that would be nice to do with Halloween next year. crossing my fingers but not holding my breath. Anyway, so this is the last of these for now. But there will be Are You Afraid of the Dark videos going into December. Bye.